Hi there. Have you ever thought to yourself, there's something that I've always dreamed of doing, but I can't do that. I've got to just do my regular job for all the reasons that I've chosen. And it'd be great though. What if I could? Your relationship with money matters. I'm Michelle Perkins, and this is the Money and You podcast, where I will be breaking down your relationship with money, offering tough love money tips, and a money dating plan that will focus on lifting the barriers to success to help pave the way for better money practices and increased wealth. It's time to take control to live a limit-free life. It starts today. Hello. Welcome to the Money and You show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. I have such a great guest here today in the studio with me, which is super fun. So I'm not wasting any time because it's a little bit of a shorter show today. And so we're going to dive into the idea of career change and how you handle the financial side of that. We're going to do it with someone who made a dramatic and wonderful career change, one of those kind of dream career changes. And so in just a minute, I'm going to introduce Daphne Subar. I'm going to tell you a little about her first, though. Daphne Subar is the founder of Subarzsweets, LLC, an online gift-giving service / bakery specializing in a unique baked good, Subarz. Subarz combine the crunch of biscotti with the sweetness of a cookie and come in a variety of flavors, including gluten-free, nut-free, and dairy-free options. Subarzsweets was launched in 2016 and had experienced consistent growth and expansion over the past 4.5 years. Prior to launching Subarzsweets, Daphne had been enjoying the practice of law for over 25 years. More information about Daphne and Subarzsweets can be found at www.subarzsweets.com. Daphne, welcome.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. I've been trying to get you over here for a long time, so thank you for making the time today.
My pleasure.
I really do want to dive in and talk about, when people see this going from, lawyer of 25 years, knowing what goes into becoming a lawyer and moving yourself, up the ladder and doing well in that profession, and then switching over to being a baker. Can you tell us how you made that happen? Because I can hear people thinking, oh, that'd be a dream.
Yeah, it was scary. I'd been thinking about it for a while. So I had loved to bake. I have 3 daughters with various food allergies, food issues. So I'd kind of become really comfortable in the kitchen baking and experimenting. And people were always saying, oh, you should sell those one day. And I'm like, no, I'm fine with what I'm doing. I loved being a lawyer. And had been doing that for many, many years, and I was not unhappy. However, in the back of my mind, I thought, what would it be like to start a business? And actually, my youngest daughter, when she was in elementary school, had to come up with a business flyer as like one of her 3rd grade projects. And she made a flyer that said, Subarz Bakery, all bars, one bakery. And I put that on the fridge, and I kind of looked at it all the time, and it was kind of in the back of my mind. Fast forward about 10 years, and my oldest daughter's in college, and she has declared theater as her major. And I got quite a bit of unsolicited advice saying,
I'm sure you did.
Really? Like, that's not the most practical field. It's not so financially stable. Maybe she should do something else. Can you encourage her to do something else? And I said, no. I said, I'm going to encourage my daughters to follow their passion and do what they're excited about. They can always change careers later, but why not do what you want to do?
Right.
So then I have 3 daughters. The middle daughter said, really, Mom, because that flyer's been on the fridge now for about 13 years. And you've always talked about one day doing something like that. Why aren't you doing it? And why aren't you following your passion? So I kind of argued with them. I said, well, it's different for me. I'm older, all this. And they're like, so? So they kind of questioned me. And finally I thought, you know what, if I want to set an example, why aren't I following my passion? And what is holding me back? And it was all fear inside of me.
Right.
And the unknown. And I just literally thought about it for a couple months, and one day thought, if not now, when? And I just kind of did it.
Okay, I love this because I do feel, and I'm happy that you did enjoy your profession. I think when we talk about career change, when people hate what they do, it's frankly a little easier to make a transition. When you love what you love or even like or are comfortable and happy where you are, that's where I see most of the angst, because you're leaving something that isn't bad, and that served you well, but you're going to something else that's an unknown.
Correct. And that was scary. It was very scary. And there was a lot that played into that on many levels. First of all, I was the first in my family to actually go to a traditional four-year college and then go on to law school. So I felt a little bit of guilt because I knew how much pride my parents had in me for that. So that was a little bit of guilt there. And then leaving something that you actually liked and going into an unknown. I had never run a business. I had never done anything like this. The reassuring fact is I could go back. I mean, I still have my license. I can always go back and practice law. And I think having that as a safety net was comforting for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like those safety nets. A lot of people say don't have safety nets. They'll keep you from moving forward. I personally like a few safety nets. And I've moved a lot in my life, and I always had that feeling too. Like if it doesn't work out in the next city, I could go back. And I never did, and it was fine. But if it's a comfort,
I agree. Knowing that that's there just in case. So yeah.
Yeah. And I've actually known people to go back too, to pursue a passion, kind of decided maybe it wasn't for them after all, or it was better as a hobby than a job, and they did go back.
Right.
So, I think that's a wise way to think about it. So tell me a little about how long did it take to make this? I mean, you sounded like you just decided, okay, and I will say, being pushed by your kids, there's some strong influence there.
There is, especially something you would tell them. Like they literally took the advice I was giving them and they gave it back to me.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
yeah. That actually works more than other things I know. When my daughters are.
And I only have
no
daughters,
problem telling you what you should be doing
all the time. Believe me.
Okay, so talk to me a little about just how you started. I mean, one day you're at the law firm, and then all of a sudden you're baking and selling your baked goods. So what happened in between there?
So there was a couple months where I kind of thought about it in a little bit more detail and thought about it more seriously. I had met someone who started a pie business. So I reached out to her and I shadowed her for a couple days. She was really helpful. And she said to me, she started it really not knowing anything. And what am I scared of? And I said, well, actually, I feel like I'm a little more scared because I know all the things that can go wrong from a legal standpoint. And she's like, stop thinking about it that way. Just think about this. And she said, literally, she was pregnant and just started baking pies because she was bored. And her pie business took off.
Wow.
So it really helped to kind of see her and shadow her. And it kind of helped me see what went into the business, and it really wasn't that difficult. I mean, everything can be broken down. During those couple months, I also did a lot of research on the internet. I mean, there's a lot to research, and I asked a lot of questions. And I think because I made this change later in life, I feel like I wasn't scared to ask questions, and I wasn't scared to say, I don't know. Right. And I feel like if it would have been earlier, I maybe would have felt more vulnerable and not be willing to just set it out there like, let me know what you know because I'm going into something new.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought that all through. And then finally at one point, I'm like, I either need to do it or not. Like literally, it was like June of 2016. And I'm like, I'm either doing it or I'm not. And I just kind of launched a website. Very different than now. I had one product. I had one flavor. I mean, it's been the same product. I only had the chocolate chip one. It looked very different. I didn't really know how to ship. I didn't know anything, but I thought I'm just going to start with one product. And then it kind of grew and expanded.
I love that. If you had it to do again, would you do it that way? Because a lot of times people spend years, frankly, getting ready. And, everything has to be put together and complete. And, I talk to a lot of people that their business structure has to be in place. Their website has to be in place. There's a lot of things. And it sounds like you started selling and working it and then built the other things as you went. Is that correct?
Exactly. I think if I would have, I don't think any more time or any more planning would have helped. I think I needed to start because I think a lot I learned from trial and error. And I think if I would have waited too long, it would almost be that like stress of the decision and not done it. And I would have found more and more excuses. So I knew I had to do it sooner. I wasn't going to be able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So now as an entrepreneur, what would you, I want to get to money in just a second, but what would you tell people who are going from, really a corporate might not be the right word, but sort of a corporate job to being an entrepreneur? What are some of the key things to know?
Several things. It's funny when you say entrepreneur because I still don't think of myself. It's weird, and it's been, it'll be 7 years this summer. So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
I would say don't overthink it. I would say if it's something you're passionate about, just try it. You can always, if it fails, it fails, but you're never going to regret it later in life. And as I was getting older, I'm like, I don't have forever. I need to try these things.
Yeah.
So really just try it. Don't be afraid to learn and don't be afraid to ask questions.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. I love that. And we do live in a cool world in terms of researching and asking questions and finding people you can ask questions of. So yeah, that's great. And I love that you found a pie maker and followed her around. I mean, people actually, maybe you found this, people like to help. People like to, be supportive of other people. Not everyone, but a lot of people.
But most do. And that's one thing I learned actually is 90 to 95% of people really want to help. And 90 to 95% of people are they have a great story also behind why they did their business, and they're willing to share that. Yeah. And I'm trying to do the same thing. Like I had a call a couple weeks ago with a woman starting a new food business. And I'm more than willing to share. No one should have to learn what I had to learn, and I kind of reap the benefits of what other people learned. So
yeah.
There's a lot for that. And I've noticed that a lot with female entrepreneurs, that we're all kind of willing to collaborate and share versus competing with each other, even with other bakers. People have been great.
I love that. That's great. So let's talk a little about money. Tell the audience a little about your situation that allowed you to do this, because for a large group of people, they would have this as a dream, but they wouldn't have, they wouldn't feel that they could do it financially. And you mentioned fear being the main obstacle to doing this. Was any of that fear around money, or was it about other things?
A little, but it was really just fear about not knowing what I was doing.
Okay.
So from the money, I'm lucky. I have a husband who has his own company, and so I had the financial support there if needed, but I really didn't want to rely on that. I really wanted to do this on my own. And I started with $500. And I really, literally just bought a couple boxes, made a couple batches, and just started like that. I never poured a lot of money into it because I didn't want that to be the business. I kind of wanted to take care of itself. So I started very small.
Yeah.
I remember talking to other business owners, not all in the same area even, but everyone said, start small and start simple. And I didn't want to. I'm going to start a bakery. I'm going to make cupcakes and cakes and cookies and this. And then they kept saying, just start small. You can always expand. And that was in the back of my mind. And I did start very small. And I decided at the beginning I would have one product, and it would be the Subarz. And I wanted a unique product. So I kind of took the biscotti and I took the cookie and I meshed them. And then I realized people loved the texture and the taste and all that with that. And so I thought the way to go is expand on the flavors. So I still just have the one product, but now I have 21 or 22 varieties, including a gluten-free line. Yeah.
Oh, fun. Yeah, they're delicious. I've had them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I love that. And I do like that advice to start small and you can expand, because what I do see is people investing all kinds of money, theirs, other people's, borrowed money, into the whole setup, and they're not earning anything for a while. And then they've dug a hole that they have to dig out of. And so you saying that you took a small amount of money and you just, from that you were generating some income while you were doing this. I think people tend to have this sort of line of demarcation where there's the investment part and then they start making money, and it for some businesses it works, but I think for a lot of people it creates a financial stressor.
Which I didn't want. And I didn't want to feel like then I'm going to be digging myself out of a hole forever. So I did really, and then, the first couple of years, everything that was made was just put back into the business, and I like that though. It felt very manageable that way. And I didn't want any outside investors or anything like that, because I also wanted it to be my business and I wanted to make the decisions.
Yeah.
I also, to be honest, there was a little bit of imposter syndrome there. And I felt like, who am I to ask someone else to invest in my business? Because maybe I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay.
So
thank you for sharing that, because that's good for people to hear.
Yeah. There was a lot, and that still pops up. Even when you just said entrepreneur, that still pops up. I still feel like, have I really been doing this for this long?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And the money piece, I want to go back to what you said about, you have a spouse who can, help pay the bills and do all that. But I kind of want people to understand that when you have support at home with, finances, but you want to start something, there is a little bit of a weird thing that happens. And people tend to, I think, oh, well, that's easy for you, hard for me because I don't have that person. And I like what you said, because when you do have that entrepreneurial drive and you want to build something, you don't really want to rely, just like you said, on your partner to fund that, to take care of you while you do it. I mean, that's kind of, I think people sort of assume that, but I think when you go into it, that's not what you're after. That's not, and that isn't how to grow a business, because then you're not, throw yourself into it the way you need to.
Exactly. I knew that was there in case of emergency, but I didn't want to rely on that money. I mean, I was giving up my salary as a lawyer, so I also, in addition to the initial investment. But yeah, no. But having just even that emotional support at home, and then the kids, the 3 girls, were very supportive.
Oh, that's
they were very excited about it, which was great.
Yeah, that is great, actually. So did you, have you hired anyone? What are you using, what kind of expenses have you grown into? What's going on financially
So things
now?
have changed. It took a couple years. So in California, you can start certain food businesses out of your house under the Cottage Food Industry Act. So I started out of my house. I think about 2 years later, I branched out to a commercial kitchen, co-packing facility where I still go, but I can use their industrial size equipment. So I went from making maybe 200 Subarz in 3 hours at home to 1,800 Subarz in 4 hours there.
Wow.
So I was really able to scale once I got out of the house.
Yeah.
Also a scary thing. The first time I drove to that kitchen with like my car filled with supplies, I remember thinking, what am I doing? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing there. We're going to see. Because I actually hire some employees for the kitchen.
Okay.
So again, the imposter syndrome struck of, they're going to figure out that maybe I don't know what I'm doing. So I branched out, and then I have the 2 employees that I kind of rent the employees along with the kitchen.
Okay.
And since then, I now have a part-time administrative assistant, a part-time employee that works on my social media.
Oh, nice.
And then I have a high school and a college intern.
Oh, wonderful. That's super
both
cool.
part-time. Yeah, so we kind of have a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
A lot of that has happened this year. Until this year, I really only had an intern off and on, and then an admin.
Okay. And have you been one of those entrepreneurs who sort of is busy creating and manufacturing and selling and ignoring your numbers, or are you somebody who follows and tracks your numbers?
I was thinking about my numbers today, actually. So in the beginning, I ignored my numbers. I was very scared of my numbers.
Yeah.
Because I had never, I'd worked for a law firm, so I never had to look at the big picture. Right. I had to look at my billables and what I was,
Right.
So the first couple years, I remember not really wanting to look at my numbers at all. And I remember after so I started in the summer, and I remember the end of the year, my husband saying to me, well, are your books all reconciled? And I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, no, I have to do that too. And he's like, you're running a bit I'm like, oh yeah. So I had to kind of teach myself, thank goodness, QuickBooks. But literally I would be very scared to look at my numbers, and I didn't understand them. And it really wasn't until about maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I got over that fear. And now I look at my numbers, and I'm looking at them a lot, and everything's, I'm kind of analyzing it, knowing where to grow, where not to grow, and all that. But it took a while for me to get comfortable with that. And I had to learn from others. And I was involved in this Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program.
Yeah.
And one of the modules in that is really taking a deep dive in your financials, which I still didn't want to do, but you had to do it.
Yeah.
So I did that, and that really kind of boosted my confidence.
Oh, I love that, because it's so important to hear that knowing your numbers actually boosts your confidence, because so many people, I have this conversation all the time with people, and they don't want to look at their numbers because it depresses them, or it, kind of tanks their self-confidence, or they think it will. In actuality, it doesn't. In actuality, knowing is a lot better, whether it's a problem because when you know it, you can fix it, or it's kind of good news that you don't even, you haven't even realized you were having. The numbers tell a story.
Right, they do. And it's interesting. And I've learned a lot. And then I also actually, about 2 years ago, hired a bookkeeper.
Okay. Good.
Because I realized I'm not good at that. And I'm spending too much time in it. I'm making mistakes. And to bring in a professional, my books aren't so complicated, but to bring in a professional that actually kind of knows what she's doing versus me scrambling has made it, that was an investment that was very much worthwhile for me.
Yeah, I think it's important for business owners to, get to know their numbers, but that doesn't mean you have to be like doing the data entry. That's, not as, I mean, it's actually helpful to do it at some point at the beginning, but
It is. But for a while I'm like, well, why would I hire someone? Because I can do it myself.
Yeah.
That took me, that was actually an overall problem I had with my business. Like, I can do it. I thought I could do it all. And you can, but you can't grow.
Right.
So I knew eventually I had to hire the bookkeeper, hire the admin, rely on the people in the kitchen, have 2 employees at the kitchen helping me versus just me and one. All that really allowed me to grow.
Yeah. So, okay, I love that. And I love that you got some, sense of satisfaction from looking at those numbers and also are able to use them because, you went a little while avoiding numbers. I mean, I know people, especially doctors and people who actually, they bring in good revenue, but they are not willing to look at those numbers. And usually the cash management part of it is what suffers. So, you've probably come to understand your cash flow and
how important that is.
How important it is.
I have, but it took a while. And really all it did was take a little bit of confidence and then just learning a little bit, like what everything means.
Right. Yeah. If you'll go back to, because at one point you said something about not understanding your numbers, and I think people out there are saying, well, if a lawyer can't understand their numbers, then, I'm going to give up before I try. But it's not really not understand. It's that you're seeing this picture of something that's just sort of new and different to look at. And once you kind of understand the components and what it can do for you.
Exactly. So, and there's so much you can learn. I mean, anything I don't understand, I can Google.
Yeah.
So if I'm not understanding, like, how important is my cash flow, any of that, I just Google it.
Right.
And then I ask my accountant now. But
Okay. I love that. That's great. So, and as a business owner, do you plan? I'm just off a couple of planning workshops I was doing. How do you do your planning?
Like, plan ahead for where the business... Yes, I do. That's also something I didn't do in the beginning because I was also a little fearful. I think maybe I didn't want to plan and then not meet my goals. But now I'm realizing I'm in a plan and I'm probably not going to meet all my goals.
Right.
But if I don't plan, I don't have a direction.
Yes.
So actually a couple weeks ago, I had a couple one-on-ones with my admin and we sat through and we planned out the month, the quarter, and the year on where I want the business to go, which really helped to talk it over with someone. And then we set goals. And now we'll revisit it every quarter.
Yeah.
But now I have goals on where I want the business to go.
Right. And I love revisiting every quarter and looking at certain metrics and seeing, what needs to be adjusted. I mean, it's basically, it's not a big judgment on how you did. It's more of just where do we course correct? What adjustments can we make?
Right. Because we don't know. And I don't sometimes know that maybe lead generation or getting into certain areas can take more time than I thought or maybe less time. Right. I just don't know till I started. I've never done this.
Yeah. You're really commenting on the fact that owning a business and running a business, it's just like constant problem solving and, problem solution is just over and over again, whether it's numbers or whether it's, whatever it is. But
it is.
Yeah, the numbers are really just sort of reflecting all the other things that have gone on in the plan and how the plan's working.
Exactly. And one thing I learned too when I started looking at my numbers is I need to devote some time and some resources to working on my business, not just in my business.
Yes.
Because before it was just baking, getting the orders out, following up with clients, like all that, but I never stood back for the first probably 2 years and really looked at the business. So actually when I launched, I consider myself a bakery.
Okay.
Because I have a baked good. And then I would kind of market myself as a bakery. Everything was kind of as a bakery. And then about 2 years in, I looked at my business and I realized 90% of my clients were ordering them as gifts.
Ah, interesting.
Because they ship really easy, they don't require refrigeration, they come boxed beautifully, all that. So then I kind of rethought of my business as a gift-giving business that has a baked good. And when I did that, it kind of exploded because I kind of projected that and I marketed myself as a gift-giving business, which people wanted.
Right.
And then I thought back to the days as a lawyer when we got a lot of gifts and we would get so many gifts around the holidays. And they would kind of be the same thing.
Yeah.
They would all come in at the same time.
Costco.
Yeah. After the first 2, we were done with them. They would kind of get wasted in the kitchen. I mean, they would sit in our kitchen in the law firm. And it was really sad. So I kind of thought of ways to work with my clients to make their gifting a little bit more unique and more appreciated. So kind of the business pivoted a little when I realized who my clients were and why they were coming to me. But I couldn't have done that if I didn't stand back and kind of take a look.
Yeah, okay, that's fantastic too, because I do think you've got to be so open-minded, really. You set out with a goal and an intention, and if you do start with a plan at some point, and sometimes, we don't take the the input that's out there and use it for good decision making. And so that was very smart.
Right. So actually it did. I started as a bakery. Now I'm more of like this gift-giving partner with these corporations. Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely.
But I had to listen and look at where my business was coming from.
And do you have you set money goals along with any other kind
I have set money goals, yes. I have
Okay.
set money goals, which
Yeah.
that's also scary.
Yeah.
But I feel like once you set them, at least for me, and I get over that fear, I can generally get pretty close, but I need to set them.
Yeah. And, you know, if you're saying that that's a little scary to set money goals, usually my guess would be you, like many people, have sort of a internal glass ceiling or a bit of a, idea of where your set point is. And probably maybe a desire to go beyond that. But does it feel like you have an idea in your head of what you could reach and what you couldn't reach?
I can. And also being more comfortable with my numbers helped me because I realized, scaling, clearly the expenses are going to go up as well as the profit. So, but just knowing where it is and knowing how things improve by scaling and all that really helped. And bringing on employees because that allows me to do more of the marketing by having them do different tasks. So yeah, I've learned a lot about that, which all kind of ties into the goal setting and where I want to be financially.
Right. And ultimately, do you want to be in the kitchen or do you want to be out there doing business development?
Ultimately, I think business development. But it's interesting because I was in the kitchen just a couple days ago and I had not been in a couple weeks because I had been sick. And then I was in there a lot right before the holidays. And it was actually really good to get back in there and get my hands back in that dough. Like it felt. So I think I need to make sure I'm in the kitchen every so often. Also, I feel like face-to-face time with the employees that I use in the kitchen is really helpful for them and for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's super important when a business is kind of a labor of love sort of thing, to not lose touch with that brought you into it in the first place.
Because it did. I mean, it was my love of baking and creating that brought me into it. And I didn't realize how much I missed it until it was actually last week that I was in the kitchen. I'm like, it's kind of nice to get back here and just, take those raw ingredients, watch them go in the oven, just watch them get, the whole process again.
Yeah.
And just remind me.
Did you ever read the E-Myth? Because they talk a lot about, their initial example. It's a great business book for anybody who's starting a business, and they talk about the technician, the manager, and the sort of visionary. I forget the term. Maybe it's just entrepreneur, but that's more the visionary, working on the business, not in the business. But a lot of it is these technicians, and they use a pie maker as the main example. They can't let go of the pie making, so then they can't be the manager or the visionary. There's no time for that. But in your case, it's almost like you're building this great business, and in a way, being somehow working that technician part back in,
which was nice.
Yeah.
But I did for a while think I had to be the technician.
Okay.
I mean, it took a couple years until I felt like I could even trust someone to bake with me. And then it took a couple years. It was really actually only last year that I started handing off more of the baking. I was still there every day, kind of checking in before and after they would bake, because the production went up to thousands and thousands and thousands every day. The holidays were great. But I still but it took a while to realize I can trust someone. But I also knew that if I wanted to scale and grow the business a certain way, I had to trust other people.
Yeah.
There's no way I could do it all.
So do you feel like your financial kind of dreams or expectations are higher now than what you would have actually ever anticipated they could be? Or were you always...
No, I think when I first started, I didn't think it through enough, and I think my financial goals were unrealistic and very high. Because I thought, people will just buy my stuff. I won't have to invest any money in marketing or anything, and it's just going to take off. And I didn't think through the cost involved and the time and all that. Then I was a little bit more realistic, and once I was more realistic, now they're kind of taking off, which is great. But I didn't take into account all that it took to run a business. I really didn't know what I was doing. I'll be honest. I didn't. I thought I would bake.
Love.
Yeah. And I thought somehow they'd get sold. I didn't take into account packaging, marketing, shipping, which it still continues to be a very costly nightmare.
Yeah.
Just all that. And then scaling. And then pandemic hit.
Yeah.
I was lucky because I was online already. I had a couple of retail locations that not my own, but places that carried Subarz.
Okay.
That they either closed or they scaled back. But my online business took off, which was great.
Yeah, that was a nice benefit to many businesses during COVID.
I was lucky. And then supply chain issues, and I kind of dealt with that. Even this past holiday season with the egg shortage, that was a real issue.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so when issues come up like that, do you have support in terms of, those kind of problems? Do you have mentors? How do you
I just kind of scramble. I do have a couple mentors, and then you just kind of scramble and you figure it out.
Yeah. Okay.
Everything has a solution. You just got to be creative.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there was one day where I could not get eggs from my normal supplier, and I literally, Walmart had eggs, and I could buy 200 eggs from Walmart.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, there's always a way. It wasn't the ideal situation, but I got the eggs because I had to get these orders out the door.
I love it. So, do you have any mindsets around money that you feel have shifted from the time that you were, getting a regular paycheck at your job to now that, you've had to kind of learn the roller coaster of entrepreneurship and money coming in and not coming in and, sometimes going out faster than it's coming in.
Right.
What kind of, beliefs maybe do you have now that you didn't have before, or something that could help people?
I think I'm not so scared of money anymore.
Interesting.
I think I was, and I don't know where that came from. I feel like I have more control over it now that I'm knowledgeable about what's going on in my books. But I also feel like money's out there, but money shouldn't prevent anyone from following their dream.
Oh,
because you can make things happen. You can make you can make things work out. I think back to even when my first year out of law school, where I was making good money, but not like I was later on, and just you still manage. You're still fine. Don't let money control you as long as you're have a roof over your head and you can eat. But I don't want money to hold people back from following their dreams.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because that's an interesting thing. I was recently, I don't even know where this conversation came from, but when you talk about giving up your job to do something you'd rather do, if you sit down and actually look at what you actually need in your household to, for you to keep doing what you're doing, sometimes it's a much lower amount than you're actually making in your job. So you could actually.
Right. I actually have this discussion with my daughters a lot on money. Like they'll say certain things. I'm like, well, is that something you need or something you want? Yeah. And they always first say need. And I'm like, you really need that? And then they're like, okay, I guess I really, really want it. I'm like, there's a big difference between need and want. And sometimes what you want can wait a little bit.
Right. Yeah, and it's true, and we're in habits with things too that we don't even recognize until we do our numbers and really look at it. And a lot of that stuff is like unnecessary for sure, or it could at least be reduced.
Right.
I was you just made me think of something else with what you were saying, and it's probably out of my brain again. So are your daughters wanting to be entrepreneurs now, or
no? They're not. One works in the entertainment industry, and the other two are in medical school.
Oh, nice.
So very different from entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But they do express to me how proud they are of me, and that really means a lot. And I think they saw that I gave up a legal career and did this because I was passionate about it, not to prove anything, but just to try it. Right. And I'll use, I'll remind them about that if they're having difficult decisions.
Yeah. Do you miss it? Do you have any regrets? Would you go back?
I don't miss it. I would go back if I had to. I didn't hate it. In the beginning, I actually missed working in a law firm around other people.
Yes.
Because starting your own business is lonely. And kind of finding your people and finding your peer group. And it's a different environment. So I do miss that. One thing I was getting tired of is I felt like basically I was around people arguing all day long. It was litigation. So I felt like people were just arguing, and not everything has to be a confrontation or an argument.
Right.
And then when I switched to the bakery, I realized everyone likes to eat something sweet. Yeah. And since most of them are being sent as gifts, people were really happy to get them. And so I felt like I was actually seeing joy in people's lives. And even though I wasn't sending them, our gifts come packaged up and they come with a handwritten note. So I would see the note, and I would see that people were thanking people for just simple things. Or during the pandemic, a lot of people were sending Subarz to neighbors of elderly relatives saying, thank you for checking on my grandparents because I can't fly there. Yeah. Or thank you for dropping off groceries for my aunt. Like all that. And it just reminded you that people really are so good and so thoughtful. So it's a nice change just to see that everyone most everyone, is really kind. And people do want to show their gratitude. So I love being a part of that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's a very nice, and I've heard that before with lawyers, that it's just an environment of a lot of confrontation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's fantastic. So any kind of parting words for new entrepreneurs who are, dealing with money issues or just business growth issues?
I think don't be scared. Don't be scared of them. You can learn. I mean, don't do anything foolish. I'm not saying, because I'm saying just follow your passion. Make sure you research it and you kind of understand the situation, but don't be scared of the money. Don't be scared of the books. The numbers are out there. Whether you're looking at your books or you're not, nothing's going to change the figures that are on that spreadsheet. So just take a look, understand it, ask questions, and don't be scared.
Yeah, and I mean, thank you. That's great advice. And I think people are naturally scared, but that fear is coming from someplace else anyway.
It is.
It's not even coming from the numbers because you're not looking at them.
Right.
So that's kind of the funny part. But once you do, you can almost see you can see your decision making in those numbers, and you can control your decisions for the most part.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
that's where the beauty is.
Right. And I've learned things that don't work. I mean, honestly, last year we tried. Several people wanted Subarz available through all the delivery apps, like through Grubhub. We tried that. Honestly, that failed. It did not work. It's not the right market for me, but I had to look at the numbers, and it just didn't work. But if I wouldn't have looked at them, I may have kept pouring money into that area, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. That is in marketing also. Well, that was a marketing tactic as well. But for sure, we can keep pouring money into things. And until we actually look at those numbers, I mean, some things need to be just shut down.
Right. And it's embarrassing to say, but I made a mistake. But I made a big mistake. It wasn't the right. And I wouldn't have known if I didn't look at it.
Yeah. And I hope people are hearing this, because every business has failures. I mean, Amazon, the list of failures, I just heard a whole talk on this. It was fascinating. But every business has to fail in order to move forward. There's just really no other way. And so there is no need to be embarrassed about it. It's part of, moving yourself forward, basically. So, yeah, so that's great. And can you tell people how they can find you? And I'm excited about it from a gift-giving standpoint, too. That's so great. And I love what you were saying about the older people. I'm dealing with a lot of that right now, and I was just thinking I need to buy some of those for some folks.
Right. I mean, people, yeah. So, yeah, the best way is through our website, www.subarzsweets.com. You can always email me directly at Daphne@Subarzsweets. And I can, if there's any corporate gifting, we work directly with you and kind of make the whole process easy. And I've learned, I mean, we've seen, especially the last 2 to 3 years, how corporations are sending out gifts to employees or to clients just to remind them about how appreciative and grateful they are that they've stuck by them during the pandemic.
Oh, that's
so
lovely.
people are using it. Yeah, people are using the gifting in many creative ways, which is great to experience.
Yeah, I love that. And so so you can just order directly from the website.
Order directly from the website. We ship nationwide.
Okay.
Everything comes wrapped up, ready to gift.
Nice.
And everything can come with a handwritten note if you want.
And I love that you have all these varieties for people who have different dietary needs. So that's very cool, too. Well, Daphne, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so happy that you were able to come in and talk about this. I love the story. I think it's inspiring. I hope people are inspired to think about maybe making a career change, and also to pay attention to their numbers and use those numbers. Exactly. Yeah. So this was great, and I do see you as an inspiration, and it does feel good to set a model for other people as well, and I think that's what you're doing. So I think that's really beautiful.
Can I add one? And if anyone actually just wants to send me an email just to say, I'm thinking about this, and I'll just tell them to do it, just go ahead. If you want to, ask me that question, because people should really be able to try something different in their life and follow their dreams. So I'm more than willing to support anyone who wants to reach out.
Ah, that's so nice. So I do think that once you've started a business, you appreciate how wonderful it is to receive help and support and mentorship, and so you do tend to want to do that for people. But that's very, very nice offer on your part. So. And thank you, listeners, for being here. We so appreciate that as well. You can see the Money and You show Monday nights at 7 o'clock on ubngo.com, and also on Roku, the Limit Free Life YouTube channel, Facebook group, And then you can listen to it on all the places where podcasts can be found. So thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions for me, any comments, so you can send those to Michelle, 2 L's, at limitfreelife.com. And check out limitfreelife.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. We have many things going on there with regard to career change, business development, and of course, your relationship with money, which after hearing this, you might, maybe some little bells went off and you realize that your relationship with money could be a little better. And that, of course, will help you to build your business or go off and start a business. So it could be money that's stopping you. It oftentimes is. So don't let that stop you, as Daphne said. So Daphne, thank you. And thank you, listeners. And we'll see you next week.